Welcome back to the Perfectly Holistic Radio Show. My name is Pam Roussel, and I am so excited to be back with you guys tonight. I know it's been a month since we last at our show, and we have a very special guest today. I don't really quite know how to introduce her. She is one of the most amazing cat moms you'll probably ever meet, with the most interesting background and experience. And she decided to put all of her knowledge and expertise in a book. Probably not your first book, but Jessica Mockett. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. How
Well,
are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're most welcome. You sent me your book probably in October sometime, and I was just like, oh my gosh, they want me to read this book, and what an honor to be selected to review your wisdom and your expertise. And you guys, we are going to be talking about her book called Purrrfecting Your Bond tonight, and it's a pretty thick book. So obviously, we don't have time to go through all of it, but we're going to hit on some highlights that I think would be really special for this audience. And let me just do a couple housekeeping notes here. We are streaming on Facebook and YouTube where we can see your comments. We should be on Instagram, but I'm actually right now, I'm not so sure if it is live or not. So if it isn't, we'll just be posting it later. But we can't see your comments on Instagram if so. That being said, where I think what I want to do, Jessica, is just start with your background and how did you get into becoming an author and an amazing cat mom?
Yeah. Well, I actually stumbled into not cat mom. I grew up with cats. I had my first cat when I was 30 as an adult. And I currently have 6 cats. So, but I got into rescue work about 12 years ago, and the rescue work really was a catalyst into learning so much about cats. In rescue work, I came across people who would tell me how much they knew about cats. And after being in rescue work for so long and how much it's a huge learning curve, you learn something new every single time you foster, every single time you work with a new illness or a new situation. There's so much to learn. And I realized that when I got my first cat as an adult, I thought I knew everything. I thought, I got this. It's a cat. I grew up with cats, so I know what I need to know. And because of that arrogance, I actually lost that cat after about 3.5 years because I had no clue about toxic plants.
Mm-hmm.
And so I lost her to an Easter lily. And so I tried, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I try to be an advocate with new adopters in rescue work, trying to help them understand that there's so much to learn about cats, and they have different personalities, different needs, different medical issues. I mean, there's just such a variety of situations out there, and there's always something new to learn. So I did the rescue work for a long time, and the book kind of came about. This is random. I actually, 4 years ago, I woke up with a very intense spiritual prompting, and it was the title of a book over and over in my head. It wasn't this book. It's a book that I feel totally unqualified to write at this point, but it was a very strong, this is the title and the subtitle of the book, and it wouldn't go away until I got out of bed and wrote it down. And I was telling my father about this prompting that I need to write this book, and it's like, I can't write a book. I've never written a book. I'm totally unqualified for that topic. And he's like, well, if you write a book, shouldn't you write one about cats? So that's where I was like, you know what? Yeah. And so that about 3 years ago, I started this book, but it didn't really go into, development mode until about a year ago.
Yeah.
So
that is amazing. I have to say, my heart really goes out to people who work in rescue because it is the most gut-wrenching thing I have ever tried. Long story short, I survived 4 visits and I couldn't go anymore because I think 3 out of 4 of those visits when I was
Can you hear me? I lost your audio.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that.
There you go. Okay.
I don't know why it got. Okay. Anyway, thank you for that. Okay. Let me just repeat. So I tried volunteering 4 different times at a shelter near me a few years ago, and I cried the whole time, 3 out of 4 of those visits, and I couldn't pull it together. So I couldn't go back. And like my heart, I feel so badly for these cats and these situations and whatever. And I think I'm such an empath that I was feeling not only all of their emotions, but all the people that work there. And it was literally so overwhelming to me. So that is why I really can't. Oh, it's a kitty. Is he coming to? That's a boy, right?
This is Bo.
Your Bo. Okay. Yeah. So when I was reading your stories about what you did through all the rescue work and all of that, I was just like, oh my God, this woman is a warrior. I don't know how you made it through all that, but talk about little Bo, because he is so precious. Tell us about him.
Well, he's my biggest dude. He is a foster failure. So he and his sister, I had them, 4 kittens came to me as 4-week-olds and adopted the first 2 out. But the one kitten, Trixie, was really ill. So I held him back so I could try to adopt them together. But then through different circumstances, I wound up keeping them. So anyways.
Well, it was meant to be, for sure.
My body.
So. He's obviously wanting to be a part of the show, which is awesome because we are all about cats. And I want to say hi over here to Keela Kitty. She says, dude and his cat mom here in the wilds of. Very excited for tonight. Dude has overcome a lot of his anxiety with your help. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, so I one of the topics in your book. And I am sorry that my connection keeps going in and out. I'm not sure if it's just the weather around here, but we're just gonna keep rolling as if nothing is wrong, because that's what we do around here. So one of the topics that I wanted to cover was about accidentally creating an aloof or unhappy cat. This is a really important chapter in your book because, like you said, as somebody who grew up with cats, you thought you knew everything about cats. And I think there's such a lack of accurate information out there with people who are guardians of cats. And I really feel like there's a difference between people who just call themselves, a cat guardian or cat parent versus I own cats. You know what I'm saying? There's a totally different level of care that goes into, people just think they don't need much attention and they're easy and, and
independent is the word that is.
Yes. You can ignore them. You can go out of town, just leave some food in a bowl or whatever, and they'll be fine. Mm-hmm. I just don't think people are so conscious and aware of what they do to totally disrupt and sever their relationships with their cats. So why don't we start there, because it is such an important topic, and maybe someone who's hearing this tonight, maybe they're a first-time cat parent and maybe they're going through some of these struggles that you're going to cover.
Yeah. So something that I came up against in rescue work a lot, when people were surrendering or trying to surrender their cats, and they would tell me the issues, and I'm like, those issues are all either avoidable or solvable. It's very rare when there's a genuine safety issue or health issue, when surrendering a cat. And so I really wanted to help readers understand where it is they may have gone wrong in the relationship. It's so easy for us to just blame the cat. It's a bad cat. I got a lemon of a cat. This cat is crazy. And there's all these excuses for what's wrong with the cat. And there's not any accountability with, what did I do wrong to create this cranky cat or this aloof cat or this aggressive cat? It's especially common in families, young married couples, because you've got children that are not being guided. They're not being proactively parented. They're not being given boundaries. They're not being taught how to treat the cat. And so there's a lot of stress that the cats go through with young families. And that's not always across the board, but it's a common situation. And another one that I come up against is men, especially in the 20 to 30 something age range. They just want to roughhouse that cat and they're going to put it in its place. And, so they have all these behaviors that they do with the cat. And then they're shocked or angry when the cat scratches them or bites them.
Yeah.
And so it's just a lack of awareness of what is it about my attitudes, the way I perceive the cat, the way I'm projecting my feelings or emotions onto the cat instead of accepting, that the cat has their own. Hey, you gotta get down. He's biting my necklace. Come on, you. So, I really wanted to help readers figure out, okay, did I do something in this relationship to create the problems? So we go over a list of behaviors and concerns and attitudes that can help them understand where they may have gone wrong.
Can you share some of those?
Yes. My brain will focus here. So one is body language. A lot of people don't understand cat body language, and that's a pretty common one out there on the internet. So if you really want to learn cat body language, there's a lot of information there that you can get at. But I'm flipping to the chapter right now.
Go for it.
So I talk about things that people don't usually talk about. And so I talk about how the cat might be slinking around or being aggressive towards other pets or aggressive towards people or hiding. And so I'm talking about the behaviors themselves that they might be seeing, urine marking or using outside of the litter box, or strange behaviors like knocking things off shelves or dashing out the door. And so I talk about how did that happen? And it happens because sometimes the people are too controlling. It happens because sometimes there's too much yelling or profanity.
Yeah.
It happens because there's corporal punishments going on. It happens because of sexual abuse. And that's one that people are like, what? But it's more and more common actually because of pornography, frankly. So it's more common for teenagers or young kids or sometimes even adults to sexually abuse their animals. And obviously you're going to have some behavioral problems stemming from that. And I talk about, some people unintentionally are not taking care of basic needs. There's a lot of people that don't understand litter boxes. They just don't get it, what the cat needs. They don't understand boundaries with children. They don't understand just negativity, like naming their cat Brutus or Killer or, Beast, right? So the power of words, they're just not even recognizing that those words can then create an animal and a relationship and a dynamic that's actually unhealthy.
Yeah.
So we go over a lot of those kinds of things.
Yeah. I think one of the, how do I say this delicately? And I don't mean any disrespect to parents out there with small children, but I think a lot of times they are just so distracted and overwhelmed that they just don't realize the damage that the presence of the children and the behavior of the children are having on the household pets.
Exactly. And that's, I talk about boundaries. Like you have to help the child understand that the cat has feelings.
Yeah.
It wants, it could be scared. It could try to be protecting itself. And I think one of the mistakes is not allowing the children to experience consequences, Now, obviously, if a child's in danger, that's a different story. But a child's not in danger from a minor scratch,
No.
So letting that child experience that wound and then teaching them, well, the cat did that because you did X, Y, and Z. So then they're learning, oh, I shouldn't do X, Y, and Z next time unless I want to get scratched.
Right. And just being a little more proactive as a parent to show them how you pick up a cat, how
Yep.
you hold a cat, when to not try to pick up a cat, when, you know, not chasing a cat, not grabbing its tail, not,
Mhm.
you know, recognizing those times when it's gonna go hide, let it go hide. Don't go chase after it.
Don't chase it. Yeah.
Don't freak it out more. Don't freak out.
There's also proactive things. And one of my missions is to really help people understand that cat behavioral consultations and training is a legitimate thing.
Mhm.
They can get help and support. And you can get it, sure, by picking up a book like this, you know, or you can call a professional and get them to come out to your house or do a Zoom call and see your environment and give you tips. But one of the things I would say is before you have children, if you have pets, there are things you can start doing to train the pet ahead of time to not be afraid of small children, to not be afraid of their kind of touching, to, you know, so there's desensitization techniques and,
Mhm.
you know, things that can be done to prepare the cat.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover on just the creating an aloof or unhappy cat that you think is important, or did we kind of hit the major points there?
I think we hit most of them. I just, you know, want to reiterate the fact that we have to be accountable for our actions in the relationship. And I think maybe that's sometimes where people, they don't think of it as a relationship. They think of it as, I own you.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to be fun. Why aren't you fun?
Yeah.
Um, and and it's an actual relationship that has to be developed and maintained. So
Just like if just like with people,
mhm,
there has to be a level of respect there.
mhm.
Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk about was your spiritual and holistic tools that are available that maybe some people don't even think about.
Right.
So, and I know you did such a great job in outlining all of these, and you put so much detail behind them. So, jump right in.
Okay. Well, I think first of all, I just wanted people to be able to discover that there are different approaches or different support tools out there.
Mhm.
Sometimes we get stuck on veterinary care and training, and that is it. You know,
Yeah,
that's all that we have for, or maybe they might include nutrition, maybe, you know, and that's all we have to help our animals. But the reality is you can call upon spiritual beings, God, angels,
hmm,
spirit. You know, they're in my understanding is they're angels with specific talents and callings and purposes. And so there are angels that are for cats, you know, so we can call upon them. So I really wanted to help people discover those kinds of spiritual tools, not only for how they help themselves improve emotionally and resolve their own wounds and traumas so that they can have a better relationship with the cat, but also how do we apply those to the cat, you know? And I include holistic healing tools with that. So like energy work, I'm a huge proponent of energy work,
hmm,
crystals, essential oils, acupuncture, light therapy, um, you know, homeopathy. There's so many different types of things, and one that I really like and tell people about, and they're like, "What?" is frequency healing. Just using tonal frequencies or music that has frequencies built into them, or medical devices that are, you know, putting out frequencies. And all of these are tools in a box that we pull out when they're needed.
hmm.
Um, and it's not just veterinary care. It's not just scientific behavioral training. You know, there are so many other tools we have to choose from for our pets.
That's a great point. And you know, our when you look at it, our pets are spiritual beings. They're energetic beings. They respond to energy. They respond to energetic frequencies. They respond so beautifully to all these other modalities. And a lot of times these vets don't have any training or even knowledge of these other, you know, alternative therapies and things. So of
Mhm,
course they're not going to talk about it and they're not going to recommend it because they haven't trained in it.
mhm.
So it is up to the pet parent, you know, like us on shows like this, that we can go out and learn about these things. What are some of those tools that you enjoy using the most, maybe on a weekly or daily basis?
Well, daily I ask for angelic help with my cats because when I go to sleep at night, I close my door because I can't have 6 cats on top of me and still sleep. So, but I do have some cats that do have conflict if they're left to their own devices. And so it is a real thing on the nights when I ask for angels to keep the peace, to watch out for the 2 cats that get bullied most frequently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear fights.
Wow.
You know, I don't get woken up in the night, but on the nights where I forget to ask, and that's the key with angels, we have to ask.
Mm-hmm.
They won't take away our agency, so we have to ask.
Yeah.
And so that's a tool I use pretty much daily, every night. I use essential oils for myself, not daily on the pets, but multiple times a week, because cats are a little more sensitive to essential oils.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to have them heavily diluted, and but I use those weekly. I use a lot of supplements for my cats, and I'm really big on increasing their nutrition value.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't do 100% raw, but we do at least 50% raw.
That's awesome.
And that really does make a difference with health problems. I have one cat, an older cat, that the vet threw out stomach cancer. He didn't fully diagnose it, but he's like, I think she might have stomach cancer because she was projectile vomiting. And that's when we switched to adding raw food. And she has done so great with that transition. She doesn't vomit anymore, where she was vomiting 3 times a week, you know, big, messy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of tools. I use my crystals all the time, like Skippy John, who's my naughty bully. He often gets to wear a crystal necklace at night to help him be a little more subdued.
I love it. Mm-hmm. And he is your Siamese chocolate point. Oh, he's beautiful.
He is a gorgeous little boy who is an amazing, affectionate snuggler, but he is my naughty one.
Yeah, there's always one. There's always one. It's a good thing you're cute, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, one of the things you mentioned, or that you have not mentioned, but I know you use a lot, is muscle testing.
Oh, yeah. So energy work and kinesiology. So it's applied kinesiology. So it's a little bit different than what a physical therapist would use for testing muscle strength, right?
Right.
But yeah, I use ring and ring proxy muscle testing for my cats all the time. Like, you know, to find out what their needs are. Or if I'm doing an energy session, that's how I get the yes, no, strong, weak kind of answers with energy work.
Yes.
So it's a great tool to have. And I try to help people to learn how to do the sway test, which is a form of kinesiology. And the sway test, they can learn how to do for themselves. And that way, when you're in the pet store, you can sway test which litter is the best one for your cat, or which food is the right one to try, or which toy they might like. I mean, you can sway test a lot of those kinds of things to zero in on what your cat really needs.
Yes, I use it. I mean, that's all I do all day long. And what I do is muscle testing. With all the modalities and the healing and everything else that I do. I find it to be so invaluable, and I wish more people would learn how to use it, because it would help them save so much time and money.
So I'll share a story.
Yes.
So I said at the top with Trixie and Bo that I didn't adopt them out, and it's because they got chronic diarrhea. And I was just starting to learn muscle testing at that time. So I was just barely reading my first book about it, right? Yeah. And so these cats, sorry, I'm flushed. It's because I'm menopausal. Isn't that information? But so I had these 2 cats with chronic diarrhea. They were like 15 weeks at this point, and I had taken them to adoptions a few times. But you have to disclose, you know, to somebody that they're great cats, but they do have chronic diarrhea. I've tried X, Y, and Z, you know, and I did. I'd taken them to the vet. We'd done fecal tests. We had done parasite, you know, cleansing things. I had changed diet to see if that would help. I had done all of these different things to try to figure it out. And one day when I'm first learning how to sway test, I'm in the pet store buying litter, and I always bought Sweet Scoop, which was a wheat-based litter, you know. And I'm standing there, and I was like, oh, I should sway test and figure out if there's a litter that, and I got a very strong no to the Sweet Scoop for my 2 cats.
Interesting.
So I switched back to a clay for them, because they were on clay as tiny kittens. So I switched back to clay clumping. and the diarrhea stopped. Oh, look, there's your baby.
There's a baby. This is Gunner. Hi, Gunner. Did you want to come hang out? Say hi.
So cute.
Sweet boy.
So yeah, so that's a great example of I tried the Western route. I did all of these things to figure out how can we stop this chronic diarrhea. I do one energetic sway test and there's my answer.
It's fascinating. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that's an awesome story. What are some of your favorite, besides the calling on your angels and your spirit guides every day, what are some of your other favorites that you think every pet parent should learn or use?
I wish more pet parents were open to energy healing.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, I mean, because I do feline behavioral consultations and training, right? That's part of my repertoire and consulting offerings is behavioral training. And I just wish they would be more open to including energy work into the other things that they're doing, because energy work can shift out the old negative thoughts, feelings, energies, so that they can adopt the new behaviors more quickly.
Yeah.
That's something that I really wish would become a little more commonplace or a little more acceptable. Too many people still look at it as woo-woo or witchy or, whatever. So
they just don't understand it. That's all.
Yeah.
People back hundreds of years ago, they didn't understand all the herbalists who would make potions and concoctions out of plants, and they called them witches because they just didn't understand. So I think people are afraid of things they don't understand. It's natural. So
for sure,
they definitely, in our community, we joke a lot about woo-woo because, that's my world and I live in it. Me too. And it's really a fascinating world. I know some people that are watching would agree because they're into it as well. So I feel like it's going to become more and more common as people learn more about it, and how essential it is when you're looking at a holistic approach, which I know you have such a passion for.
Yes.
It goes beyond the physical. It gets into the emotional, into the spiritual, and because let's face it, that's what we all are. That's what our cats are. We can't divide out just the physical side or just the emotional side. They do have a spiritual side about them because they are little energy beings in a little furry suit, Yeah.
They're sponges really for energy.
Yes. Kayla Kitty says, dude really benefited from rose quartz petting when he was going through his chick envy phase. I love that because rose quartz is really great for the heart chakra. And, when they're jealous, when they're having that part of their energy blocked, it's just a great tool for softening that and letting things go. And I'm so glad that worked for you. That's awesome. Are there any other favorites that you wish people would venture in to try more?
Well, for me with cats, I see more and more nutritional based issues. And I would love for pet parents to be a little more open with, trying raw. There's a lot of fear. And then recently in the news, there was the big news story about the cat, that passed away from avian flu, which is really uncommon. It's true, but sad for them. But you have to kind of put it in perspective. One cat out of approximately 12 million that are being fed raw diets in the U.S., So while it's very sad for that specific family, from the broad perspective, that's nothing, statistically, that's, but it's the news stories. I had 2 or 3 clients say, oh, I shouldn't be doing raw. I'm not going to do raw, or I'm going to stop the raw for a while. And I was like, well, first of all, hold up, check the brand. And what have they to say about, their sourcing and where their food's coming from? Is it even from a state that, has the outbreak or whatever? So I wish people would be a little more open to understanding that the natural things are ultimately going to be healthier for us. Like for us, foods that have higher vibration tend to be raw and alive foods, fruits,
Mhm.
veggies, those kinds of things. And if you eat, I'm not 100% good at this, but I do it on occasion. So if you eat raw or high vibration foods, as a human, your vibration increases,
Mhm.
and good things start to happen in many ways: physical health, emotional well-being,
Yes.
more spiritual reception. And the same is true for cats. If we give them what is in their terms the raw diet, which is meat, because cats are obligate carnivores,
Mhm.
it really improves their health and well-being and can influence behavioral concerns as well. So
I totally agree with that, and I think cats are probably the most nutritionally abused pets ever, because I don't think people really understand that the the dry food diets that they're feeding their cats are, number one, they're not our cats aren't even designed to metabolize that. It's not really food. It's processed cardboard with flavor. It really is. You
when
know?
I mean, I am not anti-kibble, but I try to get my clients to understand that of all the food choices, it has the least nutritional value. And
Right.
the only reason it has any nutritional value is because after it's been through all of its multiple intense heating, cooking process, they roll it in nutrition, right? Synthetic kind of
Mhm.
nutrition and oil to make it taste good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like potato chips, right? And potato chips are not awful if you have them every now and then, but
No.
as if you only eat potato chips, that's a problem.
Yeah, you're setting yourself up for problems.
Hmm.
That's good. Well, let's pivot to your chapter 12. I love your chapter 12. It's all about holistic health and medical care. Um, and one of the things that I wanted to go over are some of your alternative healing tools, or did we just do some of those? But I think
We did some of those. One of the things I wanted to talk about when you brought up that chapter was veterinary care.
okay.
And the reason why I want to bring it up is because I mean, I don't know about your state. My state is fairly devoid of holistic pet care options.
Mm,
So, and I'm sure there are other states like mine. I know California is doing better. There's a little more opportunity for holistic veterinary care there.
right.
But what I kind of want to get at is that if we go into our veterinary offices and we're advocating for our cats and asking for certain things like, do you do acupuncture? Do you offer chiropractic? Do you do physical therapy? Do you offer laser light treatments? I mean, these are the kind of the entry into complementary care. We're not asking, do you do energy work? Do
Right.
you use crystals? So
Right.
we're asking more of our veterinarians to consider complementary care.
Hmm.
And the more they consider complementary care, the more they're going to be open when you come in and say, should I add energy work to this? Or, what do you think about homeopathic remedies for this? So it's kind of a stepping stone. And I really want pet parents to be advocating for that when they go into the vet office, because I know here, I've done a study and in the state of Utah, there are 2 holistic veterinarians.
Wow.
And well, technically there's 3. One's a mobile holistic vet, but
Okay.
she isn't taking clients at all. So she has no room for new clients. And then there's one that is in so much demand, it takes 3 months to get an appointment.
Hmm.
And the other one is at least a month, right? So it's not as if you can go in to see a holistic vet tomorrow.
Right. Right.
And then as far as vet practices that are offering these complementary care that I talked about, like acupuncture and laser light treatments and physical therapy and nutritional support, that's actual real nutrition.
Right.
There's only like 10 of them out of literally 700 vets,
Hmm.
So we have to ask. And the more we ask, the more they're going to contemplate, oh, if my clients want that, I probably
Yeah.
should look into that.
Or at least it starts planting the seeds.
Mhm.
Like a lot of the integrative vets that I've met over the years or listened to seminars and workshops and things like that, that's kind of how they started. Like their clients would come in and go, they would start asking them questions about different things that they didn't study in vet school.
Right.
And it got to the point where they were hearing maybe of other success stories of vets using whatever modality, and it got them really curious. Some of them even like, I remember Dr. Marty in up in New York. He was like, he was actually gonna go watch like or meet with this vet that was having some amazing success with whatever he was doing, and he was trying to go prove him wrong. And he ended up being converted. You know, that's like a very short paraphrase anecdote. But I mean, they had to see it with their own eyes, you know, and they're like, oh my gosh, this modality is amazing. And I know for a lot of like the integrative vets, a lot of them will start with like the chiropractic or Chinese medicine.
Mm-hmm.
They'll start studying, you know, the Eastern medicine and the herbs and Chinese herbs and things like that. And it's like a doorway. You know,
Is,
it's like it's the first of many doors that they start to explore and open. And it is a fascinating journey when you open that Pandora's box and you start to see how these other tools that you weren't taught in vet school are actually healing. Not, you know, they're shocked that these patients are actually getting well and healing and reversing whatever condition, you know, or improving them to their quality of life so that they can actually have a quality of life and they're not constantly in the vet's office for whatever. That's powerful. And it breaks my heart that some vets are so turned off completely by the alternative you know, holistic integrative modalities. Have you run into that?
Well, we have to, it's like one of those things, we have to try to have compassion for where our vets are coming from, because they're coming from a very indoctrinated education, right?
Yes.
And that education is pharmaceutical owned,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, right? Big food and big pharma own veterinary schools.
Yeah.
And so they come out of it with that indoctrinated belief system. And so we have to start asking for them to think bigger.
Yeah.
And to do that in a way that's confident but compassionate at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, like you said, the more we start to ask and planting those seeds of inquiry and maybe even talking about what you've done that's been very helpful, that's not in their wheelhouse, sharing those experiences can help plant those seeds, like you said, and just make them start to be curious.
Yes.
And I don't think, you know, for the most part, we want them to be successful vets and enjoy their line of practice and all of that. But we know that they got into it to help animals. And I know a lot of them get very frustrated because the tools that they're given are so limited. They're not seeing that result.
And even more limited for cats.
Yes.
So there are very few technically approved drugs for cats, right? And it's because the drug companies don't want to pay for studies for dogs and cats. They'll just do it for dogs.
Yeah.
And that's because more dogs are taken to the vet than cats.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So they do have very limited tools, especially for cats.
And I remember when that question was posed on this panel or whatever I was listening to, like, cats are too smart. They don't want to be in a test. You know, you're not going to find 100 cats that want to be in a test and get tested on all this stuff. They're just like, cats are so independent. Dogs are just like, hey, whatever, you know, let's go. And cats are like, I don't know, stay away.
Well, from they are a little harder to make happy in the trial, but there is more research coming out for cats in the last 20 years. There are more studies, and I think a lot of it is frankly due to our Asian friends who are cat crazy, you know, because a lot of studies are coming out of Japan.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but yeah, that's something I just wanted to bring up, is that we have to advocate for what we want and not feel bad about asking for it, even though we're going to get told no. Like you said, we're planting the seeds.
And just know, guys, that there are integrative vets across the country who do remote consultations. So if you can't find somebody in your own backyard or within 50 miles or whatever, whatever limitation you put on for drive time, just start looking online, like go to the AHVMA website and see if you can find people there that do remote consultations. I know I have vet friends that do remote consultations. And granted, it's not cheap, but it's if you really want to partner with someone who can work on a team, because I think that's what we're really seeing. We're seeing the need for people to build a team for their dog care. You've got your standard conventional vet who can run all your diagnostics and labs and things like that, and you can take that information and share it with your holistic and your integrative specialties, and they can look at it with a totally different set of eyes. And they can also recommend some new diagnostic tests that have come out that maybe conventional vets just haven't heard of yet. There's so many great tools that are coming on to the market in recent years. It's fascinating. We are making some good ground in this. Love says, is there a site for holistic vets in our area that we can go to? You would just, if it were me, I would just Google holistic or integrative veterinarian near me and put your zip code or something like that. But if you go to the website AHVMA, that's the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association.org, they have a place on their website, it says like a vet locator or whatever, and you can put in your zip code and see who may pop up in your state, that kind of thing. So you can start there. And then I also learned this, and you probably have heard this, Jessica, each therapy, like Chinese medicine, veterinary Chinese medicine, has their own organization. Go to their website and see if their vets do, you can find a locator from that website. You can find the like a Veterinary Chiropractic Association's website and go to there and see if they have a vet locator.
So same with homeopathics, yeah.
Same with homeopathics, right? So each little specialty will have their own website, and you can go directly to those and see if they have locating services on their website to help you find somebody. So yeah, those are great questions. Okay, and moving on to the spiritual guidance and miracles, I have to say this touched my heart so much when you shared the story about your sister's cat and the power of our intuition. I don't think we can say enough how important it is and how powerful it is. Can you, what I really want you to do is share that story, but can you give us a little preface of like some of the spiritual guidance and tools that you have used successfully, and stories like miracles that you've experienced, and then just those hard lessons that sometimes we learn the most from?
Yeah. So I wanted to include in the end of the book, we talk about it towards the end of holistic health, how we can ask for, I specifically give examples of prayers that you can use, or, ways that you can incorporate things to help your cat. If you say your cat has kidney disease, like that's a really common thing that we deal with our aging cats. And asking for miracles, asking for tender mercies. So, in your prayers, you're asking to be guided to the right vet, or have your vet be guided to the right results or answers, or, have the angels support you on your journey to figure out what, other alternative healing options are out there, or be led to the right person who can help you. And I think if you're asking for those things on behalf of your animal, you're going to get the help that you need, as long as you have some understanding of how you receive. Not everyone receives in the same way. And so I talk about that in the book too. How are you receiving the information that you're looking for? And so I talk about all the different ways that I'm aware of, and there's probably other ways too that you can receive answers, and or develop your intuition. So you trust that inner guidance. But I think it's really important for people to figure out, what are the ways that I receive answers. For me, I see angelic confirmation all the time when I ask for specific help, and I get it. like instantaneously, you know. I also am somebody, I don't see things physically, but I see things in my mind's eye. Whether it's words or images, they kind of pop into my head for answers. You know, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
Another way that I really receive more detailed answers is through journaling. Some people call it channeling, where you're sitting down with a pen and a paper and you're asking to receive guidance on something, you know, be specific.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just allow things to start flowing through your pen, and you're not judging what's coming down on the pen. You're, you know, just allowing it. And it takes practice. I really do think it takes practice to allow that other voice in besides your own inner, you know, inner voice.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's one way I like to receive, signs. You know, there's a lot of different signs that we can receive, and signs I think are especially important for comfort, like just helping us know we've made the right choice or we're on the right path.
Yeah.
And there's a book called Signs. Laura Lynn, I can't remember the author's name. Anyways, it's a great book teaching you all the different types of signs that we can receive for comfort.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as the miracles I specifically experienced, my first miracle was when I was 12, with my cat. And I think it was a staging ground for what I've become now. I had a cat that had a urinary block, like a full urinary block, and it was his second block. My parents had paid for the veterinary procedure to, you know, get rid of the block, and that was pretty expensive for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they couldn't do it a second time. And he was my little buddy. And my mom told me that he needed to be put down that day because he hadn't peed for a long time. And I stayed home from church and just laid next to him, you know, and cried. And I eventually went off and I decided to pray and ask God to provide a miracle. And I bargained. And I came after that long, heartfelt prayer. I came back out and I laid next to my kitty, and all of a sudden there was a gush of urine, just a gush of urine from his body. And I happily cleaned it up. I mean, what 12-year-old kid sings while they're cleaning up pee? But I was singing, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
joyous, you know, because my little kitty wasn't going to be put down, and he never had another urinary block.
wow.
So, you know, it was a very clear answer to my prayer. Like,
Almost immediate.
yeah. And I cannot mistake that for what it was. It was a gift. It was a miracle. It was a recognition. You know, we don't always receive the answers we want. I've learned that as you become an adult, sometimes there's a bigger picture. Sometimes there's a greater plan at work. Sometimes you need to learn something hard in a hard way, you know, and I've learned a lot of hard lessons from my pets. You know, like I mentioned, Stella, I lost her to an Easter lily because I ignored a distinct prompting not to buy it.
Tell that story real quick, because I thought that was a good one too.
Yeah. So I was under financial duress and feeling sad. And I was at the grocery store, and it was Easter time, and there was this beautiful Easter lily, and it was like $7. And I was like, I'm going to buy an Easter lily, even though I don't have money for something like that, you know? And I put it in the cart, and I had a very distinct impression, put it back. And I ignored it, saying, oh, because I'm poor, you know, whatever, I'm going to buy it. I deserve something nice, you know? And I had, again, the thought, put it back. And I chose to ignore it. And I bought that lily, and I took it home, and I watched my cat nibble it. I didn't know. I didn't know that it was deadly. And I put the pieces together 2.5 days later when she was in kidney failure, you know? And so that was a really hard lesson to learn. I didn't take her to the vet when I first noticed symptoms because I didn't have money, and I didn't want to spend the money. And I'd seen her be mildly sick from plants before, and she got over it, you know?
Yeah.
And when I put the pieces together, I Googled it, you know, after 2.5 days, and was horrified to see that they were deadly. You know? So I rushed her into the urgent care vet, and I wound up spending $1,000 trying to save her life, and on credit, you know, and, It was a hard lesson to learn, and I had to learn the hard lesson too of letting her go because it was best for her.
Yeah.
I ignored the vet when he told me there's less than 10% chance she's going to survive this, and I said, well, let's do it, and I had to learn to let her go from a place of love and compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So, but again, that wasn't a direct ignoring. And then I had another, I'll try this quick, where I ignored a prompting. My niece, this was years later, my niece called me and asked me to foster her cat while she got her house ready to sell and showed it and moved and all of that, because she just didn't think that it would be great to have the cat through that process. So I said, before I said yes, I had a very distinct thought that came into my mind. If Tat Tat, which was the name of the cat, comes to your house, he will die. And I was like, what? I am so good at taking care of cats. That's ridiculous. Why did I have that thought? And I just totally pushed it out of my mind and said yes, that I would take her cat. And literally 2 days before he was ready to go to his new home, he had a bizarre accident in my house and died. And, it was just eye-opening to me because I thought, I'm such a great cat mom. Like, I totally take care of my cats. And it was a random accident.
And it was months after he had been with you.
Yeah.
Probably thought, oh, everything's fine. We've done this. We've come this far. Nothing's happened. It's probably out of your mind by that point, right?
Yeah. So I've learned, I feel sad for these animals because I feel like they opted, or they chose, or they sacrificed on my behalf so that I could learn. And so in my book, I share the stories because I want other people to learn from me so that more animals don't have to sacrifice for a similar type of lesson.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I just wanted people to hear from someone besides me who says, trust your intuition all the time.
Yeah.
It is such a gift that we are given to have this intuitive knowing and this connection to spirit and to God. If we would just learn to pay attention to it and trust it.
Yeah.
If I had $1 for every person who I have helped, spoken to, read about online that said, something told me not to do it, but I did it anyway. Why? And then they're in this mess, right? Or their cat died, or, they're dealing with the consequences, which are very, very, very negative as a result of not listening to their guidance, their internal guidance.
Yeah.
So I think, we probably have all been there to some degree and chose to ignore those little prompts. But I think if you guys don't remember anything else about our chat tonight, think about those stories, because we have so much at our fingertips just through that intuition. It can, once you really learn to tap into that and trust it, it will keep you on the right track.
Yeah.
It really does. It really does. And then you won't have these regrets.
Right. Well,
with these hard lessons that sometimes we have to go through, because that's part of our journey.
It is. And it's important for us to learn and grow.
Yeah.
But if you can learn from somebody else and not make this mistake, then that's beautiful. But sometimes we have to learn for ourselves. Absolutely. But the story you wanted me to share when you initially asked, what I think was my sister Ellie. She had 2 cats die fairly close together. Is that the one you were talking about?
Yeah, I think so.
Where her remaining cat started having behavioral problems.
Yeah.
So it's in the section that our cats will grieve too when we lose another household pet. And sometimes that grief manifests in different ways. But my sister had her cat, Fluffy, unexpectedly get lung cancer. And it was bad, fast, gone. Shook him to the vet that day. And he's like, we got to put him down. He's suffering, And then 6 months later, her cat of 20 years that she'd rescued as a teeny tiny that she found in an alley, got really sick, and the vet came to their home to put her down there, but the other cats were not around and didn't see the body. So I was trying to teach a couple of lessons in that story. One, it's good for our cats to be able to see the remains if possible. And they'll probably hiss, especially if they've received drugs, because they won't smell right. But it's still good for them to see the body to recognize, okay, they're gone.
Yeah.
And Ellie didn't know to do that. And so neither situation. And so she started having behavioral problems with her 2 cats remaining. Her boy cat started bullying the female cat to no end, like just incessant bullying. And so she started over grooming. And so I said, well, let's do some energy work on these cats and figure out, what there is to know. And I felt in that session, through intuition, I felt strongly that they both blamed Ellie, because they also had issues with Ellie. They used to be loving towards her, but they had stopped. Like they were, avoided her. And they both had this thought or feeling that she disappeared those other 2 cats. And so they had a level of fear. And then the other cat, I felt through intuition that he really needed to be in a school of cats, more than 2, and in order for his behavior to change. And it took a long time for my sister to accept that counsel, more so her husband. Anyways, but when she finally adopted a 3rd cat, things improved dramatically, his behavior. So, like you were saying, our intuition can be really important. And for me, that intuition comes because I'm very prayerful before I start energy work on help me get the answers that this person needs to know. Like, how can we fix this problem? What do they need to understand? And so, to your point, intuition it can be very powerful in helping us resolve problems.
Yeah, that's amazing. My goodness, it's we're kind of out of time. I can't believe it's gone so fast. But before we wrap up, can you just tell people where they can find you and where they can find your book?
Yeah. So my website's pretty easy. It's just my name, jessicamockett.com. And I offer energy work, feline behavior and training consultations, and pet holistic coaching. So if you want to switch to raw feeding, I'm your gal, or use essential oils or those kinds of things. And then if you want to buy my book, it's on my website, but it's also on Amazon.com. And it can be tricky because, it's not a super popular book yet. You have to make sure you got 3 R's, because if you only get 2 R's, you won't find it.
Yeah. Kind of like my website.
Yeah. So, but the book is available there, and there's both an ebook and the print copy available. Print's nicer, but
Yeah, no, it's an awesome book. I think you guys would really, really enjoy it, and you will learn a few things, and you'll have a lot of things to really ponder and think about that you had never pondered and thought about before. So, I love how you just open your heart and you shared so many heartfelt stories, because I think people may not remember facts, but they will remember stories, and those are the things that kind of sit with us and we learn from. So I so appreciate you and your time and your sharing your energy and your expertise and your stories and your wisdom tonight with our viewers. And if you guys are enjoying this, give it a share, give it a like. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, like the video so we can get this out to more people. That would be awesome. So anyway, you guys, I so appreciate you, and thank you for joining us tonight. And we will be back again next month for another great show. So until then, thanks everyone. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you for having me.
And we will talk to you guys soon. Thank you. Good night, everyone.